Hello and welcome to another exciting, informative episode of Africa Update, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, on Trust Television. I'm your host, Chiamaka Nwafor. When we come back, we'll delve into the matter for this week. Now, this week on the program, we'll be taking a look at the upcoming elections in Ghana, just our neighbor over here in West Africa, and of course, other stories taking place in the African continent. Now, the 2024 general elections in Ghana are scheduled for December 7, 2024, where Ghanaians will vote for the president and the 275 members of parliament. The key contenders for the presidency are Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia, who's representing the ruling New Patriotic Party, NPP. He has been vice president since 2017 and emerged as the NPP's candidate after winning their primaries decisively. Also is now John Dramani Mahama, the former president. He was president from 2012 to 2017 as a candidate for the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC. He secured his party's nomination with an overwhelming majority. Now, why is Mahama coming back? I'm sure we'll find out more when we talk to our guests. Now, the election, of course, is shaping up to be a tight race between Bawumia and Mahama. Are there other contenders in this election? Yes, we have about some other people from third party and independent candidates, with Alain Kere Martin, who is a former NPP member, is now leading the movement for change focused on rethinking economic strategies, and Akua Donko, who is running again under the Ghana Freedom Party with limited influence. These are some of the contenders for this election. Now, they're going to give you a brief overview of what the Ghana election is about before we now join my guest, who's going to give us more on what is happening. Now, of course, for the elections, we've told you the date is December 7th, 2024, and we have approximately 18.8 million Ghanaians who are the registered voters. Are these registered voters going to come out en masse to vote? Now, for the presidential election, we have 12 candidates running, and of course, we told you who the key contenders are. And for the parliamentary, we have 275 constituencies, which will elect members of parliament through a first-past-the-post system. Now, what other things are we looking at for these elections? We're looking at what kind of election mechanics are there. Now, for the presidential elections, the candidate must secure over 50% in the first round to win, and a runoff will occur if no majority is achieved. Now, voting process includes fingerprint verification, voter ID checks, and indelible ink to prevent multiple voting. We'll go more into all this while we're having the conversation, but joining me right now to further discuss is Umaru Sanda Amadu. He's a journalist and a political analyst based in Accra, Ghana. Good afternoon, Umaru.
Good afternoon, Chiamaka.
He's equally a news anchor for Channel 1 TV in Accra, Ghana. Thank you for joining us today on Africa Update. Now, can you give us an overview as to what's happening on ground for the elections coming up approximately next week, Saturday?
Thank you so much. I think you have done a great and a brilliant summary already of our elections. I almost thought for a moment that you're in Ghana. Just a few things to clear for you. So our ballot paper is going to have 13 names and photos, even though 12 people will be running for the election. And because the woman you mentioned, Akua Donko, who is number 3 on the ballot, died about 2 weeks ago. And considering the time of death to the election, the Electoral Commission decided that her photograph would remain on the ballot, and number would remain on the ballot. So the number 3 position on our ballot is actually a ghost. So we have 13 people on the ballot, but only 12 are human beings. One of them is a ghost. Now, this is a new thing. And let me say to you that numbering on ballots is a very critical issue for Ghanaian elections. So the number 1 position and the bottom position is usually a very, very significant number. So the governing party is on number one, and they're using that to do a lot of campaigning. The opposition party, the largest party, is number 8, which is not a number they were really hoping to get, but they have got that. So they are having to turn it around because the governing party has this slogan of breaking the 8, which is, so since 1992, Ghana has had only 2 political parties governing us. So from 1992, the party which is in opposition now was the party in power, 92 to 2000. So they did 8 years. Then they lost out to the party which is in power now, which is the New Patriotic Party. They governed from 2001 to 2008. And then they lost to the party which is in opposition now, which is the National Democratic Congress, from 2009 to 2016. And then the reverse happened. So every 8 years, we boot out one political party, either the NDC or the NPP. Now, the NPP has done 8 years, and it is hoping to break the 8-year cycle. Now, the opposition party picking number 8 on the ballot says, well, you wanted to break the 8, we have the 8, so you cannot break it, which means that we are going to win. So that's one of the key things. Another thing, so we are voting on Saturday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Everybody who is above 18, who has registered, 18 million people you quoted, are eligible to vote. And the polls will close at 5 p.m. And when polls close, we'll do the sorting, we'll do the counting, and then the results at the polling station are declared. We have over 40,000 polling stations nationwide. We have 16 regions, and we have 200, and again, that's something that in your summary you said 275. Our constituencies are now 276 because we've created one more. So we have 276 constituencies up for stake, which is going to have members of parliament contesting. And then we have the presidential slot, 16 people contesting. 13 people, I beg your pardon. And there are 4 independents, one of the independents being at the bottom and the governing party being at the top. So those are the key things. People go show up, vote. The results are transmitted to what they call a collation center, which is at the constituency office. Then we are told who has won the member of parliament, because that one is a simple majority. If one person gets 500 and one gets 499, the one who got 500 wins and becomes a member of parliament elect. However, when it comes to the presidential, we collate all the constituencies, move it to the region, and we have 16 regions. And from the 16 regions, we move it to the national capital in Accra. And so in Accra, there will be a lot of mathematics addition, and then we decide, we come up with the total number of voters. For you to be declared winner, you must have obtained 50% plus 1 of the total votes cast, 50%. What that means is that even if at the end of the day, one candidate obtains 49% and another obtains 47%, typically that would mean a win. But in Ghana, it doesn't work like that. You have to get 50%, and then there should be an extra vote. That's why we say plus 1. So it could be 50% plus 1 or plus 1,000 or plus 1 million, but you must get 50% of the vote and then an extra 1. That's the only decider. If that fails, we'll go into a runoff in 3 weeks, which would be on December 28th, where that determination will be made between the 2 front runners. And so that is where we are now currently, waiting for Saturday to cast the first ballot. However, there will be special voting on Monday, which is for people in the security services, journalists, election monitors, and election officials. They will do a special vote. Their ballot boxes will be kept somewhere secret until the main election day.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is come Monday, that's in a few days' time, the lots of you, journalists, election monitoring bodies, and security operatives get to vote ahead of the election day come Saturday.
Yes, so that's what we do. In Ghana, we call it a special voting. And this will be our 9th general election since we started voting in 1992. So every election period, a few days to the election, usually 5 days, we would organize a special voting, which is like a full-blown election, except that it's very few people who qualify to vote. And these people must have had their names submitted to the Electoral Commission ahead of time that they want to vote in a special election. And the reason is that they are either going to be election observers as media, or they are going to be policing the polls. They may not be in their constituency on the day of election, and so many reasons. And if you are granted that access, you'll be part of the people who vote on Monday. But their results will not be counted. We'll keep it separately and wait until the main election is conducted.
Okay. So you mentioned something earlier, and I would like to circle back to that when you were talking about the numbering on the ballot paper, and you said that the opposition party, that's the NDC, National Democratic Congress, if I'm correct, is not happy with the number they got as 8. Now, isn't the numbering alphabetically, or is it done by some sort of, ballots or something? How is the numbering done for the ballot paper, saying they're not happy with the numbers they got? Because they would know, if it is done alphabetically, what number they're going to be on the ballot already.
Okay, so I am not saying they're not happy. What I meant was it wouldn't be a number they wanted to get. So what happens is that after everybody has filed their nomination and returned it to the Electoral Commission that they want to be president, their agents are invited into a room. I don't know how your lottery system is done, but our lottery system, we have these small golf-like balls. So they have 1, 2, 3 written on it up to 13. And then they put it in a bowl, a transparent bowl, and then they shake it, and then the agents will put their hand and dip and pick one of the balls. So whatever number appears on that is what's going to be yours. So the governing party's agent picked number 1, which is easy to sell. So number 1 is the top there. So usually the campaign, if you listen to our campaign songs from the MPP side, which is the governing party, they say Estro, which means that is the top there. Because of our illiteracy rate, if your position of the ballot is at a place where it's easy for an uneducated person to find, it's very easy for you. So usually number 1, like I said, is a big deal because it's easy to say when you pick the ballot, just look at the topmost person and vote for them. Or if you got the bottommost part, then the campaign would be just go to the ASEA, which is down there. So when you pick your ballot, don't look at anything else, just go to the bottom and campaign. So the governing party securing the first position on the ballot, and this was purely through a balloting system, they were happy because it's easy for them to campaign that way. The NDC, however, is sandwiched in the middle, number 8. And I'm just saying that number 8 is not an easy sell. So what the NDC does now is to say to their voters that, listen, don't worry about number 1 or number 7 or number anything. Just look for the umbrella, which is our symbol, and go for it. The umbrella, because the thing is that the position of the presidential candidate is also going to be the position of the parliamentary candidate in an election. So it is easy for the MPP because both the presidential candidate and their parliamentary candidate will be at number 1 all across the country. So number 1 is easy to sell. However, when it comes to the NDC, their presidential candidate is number 8. But the parliamentary candidate may be number 2 if you go to a constituency where there are only 2 of them contesting. Or he could be number 3, or he could be number 5. So it is difficult to print T-shirts where you can write number 8 for both parliamentary and presidential candidates. If John Mahama had picked number 2, for instance, then it's easy for his candidates, parliamentary candidates, to have a T-shirt printed in that way. Okay. But for now, as it stands, the NDC is projecting their umbrella, which is their symbol, more. And also, of course, the number 8 for John Mahama, but they are using more the umbrella as a symbol, while the NPP, instead of using the elephant, which is, of course, their symbol, are also projecting more than number 1. So that is essentially what's happening. It is just some funny things they play with their numbers and ballot positions in elections here in Ghana.
Okay. All right, so now let's get into some of the issues, which will be the campaign and some of the issues that are happening in Ghana, which is economic policies. What are these for the presidency? Because that's it, where mostly all these issues will be resolved. What are the 2 major contenders, showing? What are they selling to the people? And, what can you tell us about that?
Well, so it's a campaign of continuity or change, which is what happens generally in general elections. So the governing party is campaigning on continuity. For instance, the past 1 week and in this week, even before 4 days to the elections, all of that, the current president, who is retiring because per our laws, you cannot be president for more than 2 terms. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has served for 2 terms. His vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is the guy who is replacing him. So the current president is moving around, opening up projects that his party has done. So interchanges. Yesterday, or today actually, he went to open a new rail line. No, he opened it already. Today they are going to do the test transmission where we have a new rail line. They are opening another interchange today, which is a major road project. they are showcasing what they have done. And he's doing this strategically, of course, because it's just a few days to the election. And they are saying to Ghanaians that if you vote for us, we are going to continue with this. What are they continuing with? A free senior high school policy, which Akufo-Addo promised and delivered, is a big issue. I don't know what your country does, but in Ghana now, since 2017, when Akufo-Addo became president, if you finish junior high school, you go to secondary school and you don't have to pay school fees or buy books or pay for tuition. It is free. Now, it was a major campaign promise, and they have delivered it, even though there are challenges with that. But they say because of that, we have so many children who would have otherwise been on the street in secondary school. So you should credit us for that. We have brought medical delivery system using drones. We have done so much. So allow us to continue. Let us break the aid and we'll ensure continuity, because it's my vice president who is going to take over. The opposition party says, no, wait a minute. When you were coming into office, your running mate, who is now the flag bearer, was projected as the Adam Smith of Ghana, the economic whiz kid. You said to us that you're going to fix our economy. As we speak, when you came to office, the CD to dollar ratio was 4 CD to a dollar when I, John Mahama, was leaving. Today, under your watch, a dollar is to 16 CDs. That is crazy. The liter of fuel at the time was so less. Today, a liter of fuel is so much. There is total hardship. You have taken people's bonds that they have bought with the government and said you cannot pay them. So the economy is not looking that good. So stop running away from the economy, stick to the economy, and accept that you have failed. So the John Mahama campaign and the NDC would say, we are coming to reset the economy and reactivate the economy. Those are the two major issues on campaigning on the economy. Don't forget that in Ghana, there is an unwritten rule that the vice president chairs the economic management committee. So whatever happens in the economy, you blame the vice president. That's why Dr. Bawumia is being blamed for the poor performance of the economy, even though he was not the president. John Mahama was vice president before becoming president. He was chair of the economy. So they try to do that compare and contrast kind of thing. And so those are the key issues going into the election. Economy is playing a very, very critical role. But the government insists that they have done so well. The only problem that has led to where we are now is the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. They say that due to that issue and also the COVID-19 pandemic, the economy went south, and that cannot be blamed on their performance, but rather on the global challenges, which is the reason they have gone to IMF, which IMF they have criticized the former government of going to and have said they would never go to the IMF. Now they have gone to the IMF. So it's a tit for tat and an economic comparison game happening here.
Okay, so there are two things I want to like for you to talk about and, together. Now, earlier in the year, which I think is equally one of the issues, although, maybe it might not be a key issue really, is the Galamsey situation. And we had someone talk about it earlier in the year on our program. And of course, now Mohammed's brother that was indicted in that Boeing Airbus scandal and all that. How is this affecting the elections?
So I'll take the Airbus first of all. When John Mahama was president, there were a lot of allegations against him, allegations of corruption and engaging in activities that he should not engage in. So one of them was this Airbus scandal where his junior brother was accused of being behind some kickback that was paid in the procurement of aircraft for the Ghana Armed Forces and the presidential jet. Now, these allegations have been hanging around his head for the past 8 years, where everybody kept referring to him as being the man who was behind they called him Government Official 1. Now, what happened is a few weeks ago, which is just a few weeks to the election, Akufo-Addo's appointed special prosecutor, now Ghana has an office of special prosecutor, which was introduced in 2017 by Akufo-Addo. That special prosecutor, Kisie Jabin, calls the press conference and announces that John Mahama did no wrong in that Airbus scandal and that he's as clean as a whistle. That's a big, major positive one for the opposition party, because if you are getting cleared by the man who's appointed by the current president, that's a big deal for you. So I would say that the Airbus is no more a big deal in this campaign. If it will be used, it will be used by the opposition, which will say, listen, here's our terminal report. his own man said, our man is clean, so we are pretty fine. But his people are so corrupt. His minister for sanitation was found to have millions of dollars and cedis in her bedroom. He has done nothing about it, so he has nothing better on us if it comes to corruption. So that is a campaign which is very positive for John Mahama. When it comes to Galamsey, so Galamsey literally is gather and sell. Ghana is a gold producing country, and we have a lot of international mining companies that are exploiting our gold reserve. However, there are young people who are going into our riverbeds and going into our forest reserves, and they are digging gold using unorthodox means, and they are supported by Chinese and other big people who have money. They buy excavators, excavate the forest, also have something they call champang, which is a Chinese, I don't know whether it's a Chinese product, but they put it on the waterbed and they use that to clean the gold. As a result, lots of our water bodies were destroyed, so that if you saw a river body in Ghana, you see the river, the water looks like groundnut soup. And that is so bad enough. And this government, Akufo-Addo, he has said that he was going to put his presidency on the line for the fight against Galamsey. As my media house, CTFM radio station, we started the campaign against Galamsey using the hashtag Stop Galamsey. 7 to 8 years on, our assessment is that we have failed, and we have terribly failed. A few months ago, 2 months or so ago, the organized labor, which is Ghanaian labor unions, had agreed to go on a strike to insist that the government fixes it before. Unfortunately, we were hoping they do go on that strike, they did not. So our water bodies were so bad that the Ghana Water Company said it was going to be very difficult to treat water for our consumption, because a lot of our water that we consume in our homes, in our taps, usually it's usually processed from these rivers, and we have a lot of river bodies. A lot of them are failing as a result of the Galamsey. Galamsey is a big issue, and it is going to continue to be a big issue in this election season. John Mahama has said all the people who have been arrested and prosecuted and jailed, when he comes, he's going to free them. And his reason is that they are the low-hanging fruits, and that he would rather target the big people who have bought the machines and carry these boys to go and do the mining, not the small boys who are just looking for something small to chop. Because a lot of government officials have been fingered as being involved in the Galamsey exercise themselves.
All right. Okay. So it's been quite a very interesting conversation, and equally educating as well. Learning more about the Ghana's way of doing things and elections. Now, just before we let you go and talking about other things, what do you, when you look at the voters, what's the voters' sentiment like? What are we expecting to see? Are we, I think in the air, are people excited about these elections? Are we expected to see a large turnout or what?
Well, so we expect to see a large turnout based on a number of polls that have been done. I must say that our polling system is not as accurate as you do know how polls have been behaving, and Donald Trump has shown to us that pollsters usually get it wrong, and they've gotten it wrong again. In this country, one of our biggest pollsters, Musa Danko of Global Info Analytics, has just released a poll about 2 hours ago where he's putting John Mahama at 52% and Dr. Bawumia at a little over 40%. Now, that would be something exciting for the opposition party. However, this is a young vice president who is an economist, a doctor in economics, who has been vice president for 8 years, who was not a politician at all when he was named running mate, and who has transformed from the political novice to a political campaigner. He's bent to win, and he's desperate to win to make a point. He's pushing hard. He's a Muslim, which is a minority religion in Ghana, but he is seen in church, kneeling down, having pastors pray for him, moving with the clergy, moving with pastors, while saying that he's still a Muslim. Now, he's trying to harvest as many Christian votes as he can and also add them to the Muslim votes. He's from the north. We have the opposition leader, John Mahama. He's a northerner. He's not a Muslim, but generally Muslims are from the north. He's called Mahama, which is a Muslim name. In fact, John Dramani Mahama, Dramani being Abdurrahman, which is an Arabic name, which is a Muslim. So he has a parentage that is Muslim. He speaks Hausa, which is a big language in Ghana. the governing parties running matrix, the candidate also speaks Hausa. Okay. So the northern votes, we foresee them being split between the two. When it comes to the southern votes, if people are going to vote based on religion, then John Mab.
Umar, can you hear me? So I hate to cut you short because time won't allow us to really delve into more of the conversation, and I really hate to cut you short at this time. But it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll have you next week to give us an update on the situation on ground in Ghana.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update today. That was Umaru Sanda Amadu from Ghana talking to us about the upcoming presidential or general elections actually in Ghana going to take place on Saturday. And before we come back from the break, we'll have other stories to stay with us. Welcome back. Now, 10 years ago, 80% of Africans believed democracy was the best form of governance and would always choose it over military or one-man rule. Today, the number has dropped to 66%. From Ghana, Sinonu Turd speaks with a former military officer turned democracy advocate, and with young Ghanaians becoming increasingly dissatisfied with their elected officials.
Look at Sudan today. Those military who are supposed to unite to defend Sudan are fighting for power. Fighting for power because power also corrupts.
That citizens can go to the polls and know that what they say at the polls will reflect the real will of the people, and that they can kick a government out if they misbehave. When elections become that effective, then the accountability relationships begin to build from there.
And that's so much we have for you on Africa Update this week. I hope you've learned something, understood how the Ghana elections work, or rather the Ghana electoral system work. Same time, same place next week. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream for more news, programs, and documentaries. I am Chiamaka Nwafor. Bye for now.